What if I told you that your peace, your real, untouchable, unshakable peace, has never depended on what happens around you, but entirely on what happens within you? This isn't about willpower. It's not about suppressing your emotions or forcing yourself to smile through pain. And it's definitely not about faking a positive mindset. Real transformation begins when you stop trying to fix the world and start seeing the only thing you can truly change: your interpretation of it. You've seen it. Some people walk through chaos with astonishing calm. They lose jobs, relationships fall apart, plans go sideways, yet their center holds. Meanwhile, others collapse under the pressure of a single bad day. The difference? It's not luck. It's not even personality. It's a skill. A deep psychological skill rooted in the way they interpret reality. Carl Jung knew this better than anyone. He didn't just teach us about the unconscious mind. He showed us that what we don't confront within ourselves doesn't just disappear. It shapes our reality. It leaks into every thought, every emotion, every reaction. What we don't heal, we project. And what we don't understand within, we end up fighting without. Your beliefs, fears, and unresolved wounds act like a filter, like a pair of tinted glasses that color how you see everything. If those glasses are shaded with fear, guilt, or shame, you'll find fear, guilt, and shame everywhere you look. Not because the world is dark, but because your perception is. But here's the truth that most never realize. Reality isn't something that happens to you. It's something you interpret. It's filtered, shaped, and molded by your inner world. That means the most powerful shift you can make isn't out there. It's in here. And that shift begins when you stop resisting your emotions and start understanding them. Fear isn't your enemy. Neither is sadness, anger, or doubt. They are messengers. If you listen closely, each emotion carries a hidden message. Sadness often reveals an outdated attachment. Fear signals an inner belief that needs to be questioned. Anger tells you that your boundaries are being crossed. These emotions aren't here to destroy you. They're here to wake you up. But what most people do, they numb, distract, work harder, binge watch, swipe, scroll, anything to avoid sitting with what's uncomfortable, and that avoidance becomes a trap. Because what you resist persists. So, what's the alternative? Pause, breathe, observe. Next time you feel triggered by an argument, a criticism, a rejection, don't react, just ask. Which part of me is reacting right now? Is it the current situation? Or is it something older, deeper, still unresolved? Jung called this the silent observer. It's the part of you that can witness without getting pulled into the storm. When you access this space, you gain the power to respond rather than react. And that's where your freedom lives, not in controlling the world, but in transforming your relationship with it. You don't need to suppress the storm. You just need to stop becoming it. And when you learn to do this consistently, a quiet power begins to grow inside you. You realize that most of your thoughts aren't even yours. They're echoes from childhood, from trauma, from fear-based programming you didn't choose. But here's the good news. You don't have to keep believing them. Let's make this real. Imagine someone who spent their whole life trying to earn love. As a child, they learned that love had to be earned by pleasing others, staying small, staying quiet. So as an adult, they overextend themselves. They never say no. They're terrified of being rejected. But one day, they stop. They see the pattern. They understand the belief behind it. I'm not enough unless I prove I am. And when they question that belief, really question it, something breaks. Not them, the cycle. They start setting boundaries. They say no, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And the most beautiful thing, the world adjusts. People begin respecting them, not for what they do, but for who they are. That's what shadow integration is. That's what it means to bring the unconscious into the light. Not by pretending, not by fixing, but by choosing to see clearly. And when you do, when you reclaim the meaning behind your thoughts and emotions, you stop being a prisoner of life. You start becoming its conscious creator. The most powerful decision you can make is this: I no longer give anyone or anything the power to disturb my peace. Not because you've become numb, but because you've finally remembered who you are without the noise. Let's go deeper. Most people don't realize that the pain they carry doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from the meaning they assign to what's happening. The situation isn't the enemy. The real trap is the narrative you unconsciously build around it. That's what drains you, not the event itself. What Jung revealed is that emotional liberation starts not by fixing your circumstances, but by shifting how you interpret them. So here's the truth. You don't need the world to change for you to find peace. You need to change how you relate to what the world throws at you. That shift alone will do more for your inner calm than 1,000 external victories. Imagine this. You're at work, and your idea gets dismissed in a meeting. Instantly your heart sinks. You feel invisible, maybe even disrespected. But let's pause. What really happened? Someone disagreed. That's it. The rest, the feeling of being worthless, the anger, the spiral into self-doubt. That was your story. A story rooted in old wounds, maybe years of needing approval, or a fear of not being good enough. That's what you reacted to, not the event, but the meaning you gave it. This is where emotional sovereignty begins, not by forcing yourself to stay positive, but by noticing the internal lens through which you see the world. As Jung explained, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That unconscious narrative, that's your real battlefield. So how do you change it? First, you observe. Like a scientist studying your own reactions, not to judge them, but to decode them. Ask yourself, what part of me is reacting? Is this emotion really about the present moment, or is it an echo of something deeper, something unresolved? Let's say you always feel uneasy when people give you advice. Your first instinct might be resistance or anger. But beneath that reaction, there might be a deeper wound. Perhaps you grew up feeling controlled, never fully heard. In that moment, the advice wasn't the issue. It triggered a memory of being dismissed. And now, your subconscious is fighting not the person, but your past. This is the work of inner integration, recognizing that emotions are not random. They are messages. Each reaction is a compass, pointing toward a part of you still asking for attention. Jung didn't advocate for suppressing the shadow. He believed the exact opposite. What we avoid becomes our master. What we accept becomes our teacher. The more we deny a part of ourselves, anger, sadness, fear, the more it controls us from the dark. Here's where reframing begins. Instead of saying, I was hurt because they rejected me, try this. Their response activated an old belief that I'm not enough. But that belief is not the truth. It's a story I've outgrown. That subtle shift in language, moving from victimhood to conscious awareness, changes everything. You become less reactive, more curious, more capable of sitting with discomfort without being consumed by it. But don't mistake this for passive tolerance. Reframing isn't about making excuses for others or ignoring harm. It's about reclaiming the power to decide what you carry and what you release. You can hold someone accountable and still refuse to internalize their behavior as a statement of your worth. Let's bring this to a deeper level. Start noticing your recurring emotional loops, patterns that show up again and again. Maybe you always feel betrayed or always feel unseen. These are not coincidences. They are signs of a deeper emotional imprint repeating itself in different forms. And this is where inner dialogue matters. Every time a voice in your head says, "This always happens to me," ask, what am I still believing that keeps drawing this in? Not with blame, but with compassion. The goal isn't to fix yourself. The goal is to meet yourself, fully, and without shame. Let's talk fear. Not the fear of physical danger, but the quiet fear that drives perfectionism, people-pleasing, and chronic anxiety. That fear says, if I fail, I'll be abandoned. If I stop performing, I'll be rejected. But here's the secret. Fear isn't your enemy. It's a guide. It shows you where your trust in yourself is still incomplete. So instead of resisting fear, sit with it. Ask, what are you here to show me? And listen. Maybe fear is reminding you that you've tied your value too closely to outcomes. Maybe it's showing you that it's time to stop living according to someone else's expectations. Either way, fear has wisdom, but only if you have the courage to hear it. Jung believed that every person has within them an untapped reservoir of strength, a self that is not defined by trauma, ego, or societal conditioning. He called it the individuation process, the journey of becoming whole. And the first step is awareness. Awareness doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means you stop being ruled by it. Once you begin reframing your reality through conscious observation, you create space. Space between trigger and reaction, between emotion and meaning. And in that space lies your power, the power to choose a new response. A response aligned with who you are now, not who you used to be. Let's now talk about responsibility, not the heavy kind you've been taught to dread, but the liberating kind. Emotional responsibility is the quiet act of taking ownership over your inner landscape. It's looking at your triggers, your beliefs, your reactions and saying, I may not have created all of this, but I am responsible for what I do with it now. Responsibility doesn't mean blame, it means power. Power to rewrite the internal code that's been running your life for years without your permission. Power to no longer be defined by what happened to you, but by how you choose to carry it forward. Here's a powerful practice you can try today. The next time someone frustrates you, pause. Not to suppress, but to inquire. Ask yourself, what is this experience inviting me to see within myself? Maybe it's showing you where your boundaries are too soft, or where you're still waiting for validation you never received. When you turn those moments into mirrors, they stop being wounds and start becoming doorways. You also begin to see your reactions with more kindness. Instead of judging yourself for feeling too much, you start seeing your sensitivity as a strength, a signal that something inside you is ready to be seen. Remember, emotions don't need to be fixed. They need to be felt, understood, and integrated. Jung once wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Why terrifying? Because it demands you face everything you've spent years hiding, your insecurities, your unresolved grief, your unmet desires. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop running from yourself, you become unstoppable. There is no freedom without self-acceptance. And there is no self-acceptance without emotional honesty. You have to be willing to stand in front of the emotional mirror and not look away. And as you do, something shifts. You realize that peace doesn't mean feeling happy all the time. It means being okay with whatever arises, without needing to escape it, control it, or deny it. The beauty of this shift is not just personal, it's relational. When you become emotionally aware, your relationships change. You stop taking things so personally. You stop expecting others to fix what's unhealed in you. You show up not needing someone to complete you, but ready to connect with them from wholeness. You begin to see every relationship as a teacher, every challenge as a curriculum, and every emotion as part of your evolution. This is what it means to become emotionally sovereign, and this is where your freedom begins. Picture this. You're in the middle of a conversation and someone says something that stings. Instantly, your body tightens. A flush of heat rises in your chest. That familiar impulse kicks in, to shut down, to defend, to lash out. Maybe it's your partner brushing off your opinion. Maybe it's your manager calling your efforts into question. But what if, just this once, you didn't react? This is the moment Carl Jung called the conscious pause. It's the razor-thin space between stimulus and response. A space where your past wounds rush in, ready to take over the script. But also, a space where something radical can happen. A choice. The choice to respond with awareness instead of reflex. With presence instead of pain. Emotional mastery isn't about controlling how you feel. It's about increasing the space between what triggers you and how you respond. And in that space, even if it lasts a second, transformation begins. Most people live on emotional autopilot. They believe their reactions are just who they are. But most reactions aren't expressions of truth. They're echoes. Echoes of childhood conditioning. Echoes of old wounds we've never taken the time to understand. You are not your reaction. You are the one who notices it. And that noticing, that conscious awareness, is your greatest untapped power. Let's go deeper. Think of the last time you felt overwhelmed by sadness, anger, or shame. Not just noticed it, were swallowed whole by it. Did that emotion truly belong to the moment, or was it connected to something far older, something long buried? Jung believed the emotions we feel most intensely don't begin in the present. They're currents from the deep, traced back to formative moments where something in us was left unresolved. And until we recognize those undercurrents, we'll keep getting swept away, stuck in patterns that repeat and repeat. This is why self-knowledge is liberation. Not to fix yourself, but to understand what's been silently running the show. Why do you freeze up when someone disapproves of you? Maybe you grew up learning that disapproval meant withdrawal of love. Why do you panic when you're not in control? Maybe you lived in chaos once and control became your shield. These reactions don't mean you're broken. They mean you're carrying stories that were never fully yours to begin with. And here's the path forward. Unlearning. Unlearning the belief that strength means silence. That showing emotion makes you weak. That being lovable means being flawless. This is individuation, the lifelong process Jung described. The shedding of false identities, external expectations, and all the unconscious programs we've inherited. It's the path of becoming who you truly are underneath the noise. And this path leads through your shadow. The shadow isn't just where you hide your shame or anger, it's also where you hide your power, the parts of yourself you rejected to be accepted. Your anger might hold the courage to say no. Your jealousy might signal an unlived potential. Your sadness might be asking you to finally grieve what you've lost. Most people push these emotions away, but suppression doesn't make them disappear. It makes them louder. They show up in your relationships, your work, your health. They live in your tension, your anxiety, your silence. But when you stop running, when you pause and ask, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Everything begins to shift. Sadness might be urging you to let go. Fear might be pointing at a limiting belief you've outgrown. Anger might be saying, your boundaries are being crossed. Speak up. When you stop treating emotions like intruders and start treating them like messengers, your entire inner world begins to reorient. You become someone who doesn't run from pain, but learns from it. Someone who doesn't avoid discomfort, but transforms it. This is emotional fluency, the ability to feel deeply without drowning, to experience anger without aggression, to feel fear without paralysis, to let sorrow move through you without becoming your identity. The more you practice this, the more resilient you become. And resilience isn't bouncing back to who you were, it's expanding into who you're becoming. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're receiving criticism. In the past, it might have triggered shame or defensiveness, but now, you pause, you breathe. You ask yourself, what part of me feels attacked? What story am I telling myself right now? Instead of reacting, you respond. Maybe you say, thanks for the feedback. Can we explore it together? And just like that, you've interrupted an old pattern. You've responded from self-trust, not self-doubt. This is reclaiming your inner authority. It's not about being unbothered. It's about being self-anchored. It's not about being detached from emotions, but about not being controlled by them. You still get triggered. You still feel things. But you know how to meet yourself in those moments. You know how to listen, how to self-regulate, how to stay connected to who you are even in the heat of discomfort. And eventually, the storms that once shook you become portals. Portals to clarity, to deeper connection, to truth. Because here's what most people miss. When you transform your emotional response, you don't just change your inner world, you change what shows up in your life. You attract people who meet you in your calm. You navigate stress with groundedness. You make decisions from clarity, not reactivity. You stop living as a reaction to life and start living as the conscious creator of it. This is not philosophy. It's practical spirituality, psychology with a soul. And every time you pause instead of react, breathe instead of explode, listen instead of judge, you are building a new emotional reality, brick by brick. This is your power, and no one can take it from you. In the final chapter, we'll dive into how to ground this emotional intelligence into real life, your daily routines, your boundaries, your relationships. Because wisdom isn't just about knowing, it's about living. You've come this far. Now let's finish strong. So here you are. You've come through the storm. You've confronted the emotional patterns that once ran your life. You've looked your fears in the eye, stopped running from discomfort, and started asking better questions. Now comes the part most people never reach, embodying what you've learned. Because understanding your emotional triggers isn't the end, it's the beginning. Integration is where the work deepens, and it happens, not in grand moments, but in the quiet, often overlooked corners of your day. In how you speak to yourself when no one's watching, in how you respond to tension without collapsing into self-blame, in how you choose rest without guilt, presence without performance, truth without apology. You're not just rewiring thoughts anymore, you're rebuilding your nervous system. You're choosing safety not from the world, but within yourself. That is the work of becoming unshakable. And it begins with one powerful question. How do I treat myself when things go wrong? Most people treat themselves like a failure factory. The moment they mess up, the inner critic gets loud. You should have known better. You're not cut out for this. What's wrong with you? But you are not a machine. You are a living, breathing being. And the voice you use internally is either a whip or a lifeline. Either you deepen the old wound, or you offer the balm it never had. Carl Jung understood this paradox well, that true healing isn't about becoming someone new, but finally returning to the self you abandoned long ago. And if you want to meet that self, your original self, you have to stop punishing your humanity. Your softness is not weakness. Your feelings are not a flaw. Your struggle is not a sign that you're behind. It means you're alive, and that aliveness is sacred. So let's get practical. How do you build a life where peace is no longer something you chase, but the foundation you stand on? 1. Build boundaries from love, not fear. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors you open with intention. They're not about pushing people away, but about honoring your capacity. You don't need to justify your limits. You don't need to explain your no. A simple truth is enough. I choose peace. That's reason enough to walk away from chaos. That's reason enough to close a door, not to punish someone, but to protect your own nervous system. Because when your peace becomes non-negotiable, you stop begging others to respect you. You model it yourself. 2. Make space for stillness. You cannot hear your intuition if you are constantly drowning in noise. Stillness is the amplifier of inner wisdom. Each day give yourself 10 minutes. No phone, no to-do list. Just breath and being. It's in those moments that your deepest truths rise to the surface. The ones you've buried under productivity, people-pleasing, and performance. Stillness is not emptiness. It's a portal to clarity. And clarity is what allows you to stop reacting and start creating. 3. Practice emotional discernment. You are not obligated to feel every emotion as if it were gospel. Yes, emotions are messengers, but not all of them are telling the truth. Some are echoes of the past, some are projections of fear, some are responses to old identities you've already outgrown. Discernment is asking, is this mine? Is this now? Is this helping me grow? When you stop being enslaved by every internal wave, you start steering the ship from within. 4. Learn to hold duality. There will be moments where you are both strong and scared, grateful and grieving, peaceful and angry. That's not a contradiction, that's reality. Growth doesn't erase your emotions. It teaches you how to hold them with grace. To say, this hurts, and I can still move forward. To say, I'm scared, and I trust myself anyway. Maturity is the capacity to hold opposites without collapsing into either. And here's the truth. Your most powerful moments won't come when everything is perfectly calm. They will come when the storm is raging, and you remain steady. Not because you've silenced your pain, but because you're rooted in something deeper than pain. Because when you no longer fear the storm, you realize you are the storm, and the calm within it. 5. Redefine peace. Let go of the idea that peace is passive, that it means ignoring problems or suppressing emotions, that it's a mood you stumble into. Peace is not fragile. It is not weak. Real peace has teeth. It's the force that lets you walk away from what no longer serves you, even when it's comfortable. It's the strength that allows you to choose presence over performance, truth over approval. Peace is not what happens when life gets easier. Peace is what happens when you no longer abandon yourself in the name of survival. 6. Live by inner authority. The world will always offer you scripts. Be more productive, be more likable, be more impressive. But the more you obey, the more you lose the sound of your own voice. So ask yourself daily, is this mine? Is this goal mine? Is this belief mine? Is this version of success mine? If the answer is no, gently let it go. Because peace is not something you achieve when you finally make it. Peace is what you uncover when you let go of everything that isn't you. And when you begin living from that place, something wild happens. You become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You're no longer seeking love, you are love. You're no longer begging to be chosen, you choose yourself. You're no longer pretending to be okay, you are at peace, even when you're not okay. And that is freedom. The kind that no one can give you, the kind no circumstance can take away, the kind that, once felt, rewires you forever. Final words. Let this be the moment you stop chasing emotional perfection and start practicing emotional sovereignty. Let this be the moment you stop performing for peace and begin building it from within. Every pause, every breath, every conscious choice to come back to yourself, it all counts. So the next time life tests you, pause, return to center, and remember, peace isn't something you earn, peace is who you become.